because after I dropped out, got martial arts, then I got involved in both my spiritual explorations, meditation, spiritual practices, people, that were involved in sort of understanding multiple levels of the universe and seemed to have quite a knowledge of how to do that. And then I had my own personal experiences that validated a whole lot of what I had so kind of intuited all along, which is, hey, there's a bigger game out there than we can see. And it's in all of us. We're all engaged in it, but you don't have to wait to die to find out what it is.
What was that experience? Was this?
Oh, I had many of them, but they were an awful lot about sort of letting myself kind of go out of the body and be and see things in another way from a whole different perspective, it was not drug related. It was really just more the ability to be able to do that. And a lot of it kind of happened, not that I was that conscious of it. I had a great spiritual coach, really, a guy named John Roger, that I worked with. I explored a lot of different people and a lot of what they were doing, tried a whole lot of different things, ran across John Roger, and this guy seemed to have gone down the path that I was on, but a lot further than I had gone. But he was the kind of guy that you meet people like that. The way he talks, he doesn't really care if anybody believes him or not. He just knows the truth of what he was doing. And I sort of very much resonated with him. I said, I want to hang out with this guy and see what he learns until I sort of run through all that, and then I'll go find something else. And I never ran through all that after 45 years. Wow. And he died about 5 years ago. Wow. So that was the basis of my spiritual work and practices. And essentially, as I got involved in that, my inner life got richer. My outer life kind of slowed down. I experimented with a lot of different drugs. They put me away in a mental institution for a short period of time because I demonstrated aberrated behavior.
We almost lost you to that. So just real quickly to interject, last year I ran my first Ironman race, and I had to go to New York City to train for it. And in the process of making the movie, I started talking about my heroin overdose from 2001 when I was in New York City. And I had that in the notes for our last interview, but I hadn't actually ever told anyone about it, including my wife, until last year. And so, and it's been interesting for people to say, wow, I never thought that would happen to you, Brian, because you seem to be the guy that doesn't happen to. And it was interesting for me to talk about because it can happen to anybody, just kind of the drugs and the addiction and stuff. And we almost lost you there briefly, right?
Well, actually, not really.
Okay.
But I wasn't doing any of those things as escape. I was doing them for exploration. I was fascinated by acid, LSD. I was fascinated by mescaline. I was fascinated by even grass, and by just the consciousness, because I was very much into what's the other consciousness that you can get into and tap into. So it was those days. We're talking the '60s, so that was that was just kind of like, well, so who wasn't doing anything like that? So mine, and I snorted smack for about a year and a half, and when I decided to stop, I just stopped. Didn't have to go through withdrawal, and had kind of a bad cold, and that was it. Okay. So I wasn't really, and it's tricky because, as you know, we're quite seductive.
Yeah,
quite seductive.
It's a funny
because no matter how bad you feel, it makes you feel good. Right, and that's why this opioid thing is so I don't know if it's scary, but it's certainly it's quite understandable why a whole lot of people get wound up involved in all that.
Yeah.
But so all those things actually added to a lot of different experiences that I had, and so I wouldn't give any of them up because I wound up getting where I am now through all those things, rungs of the ladder, in a way.
And the psychedelics were a big part of it as well.
Well, they just kind of fried my nervous system, so I wasn't able to monitor things quite so well. And so, I went through a period where I was hearing voices, I was seeing things, that were showing up, and from my experience in other things, they were not necessarily unreal. And I started to get kind of mad at the world because I could see. I was, in a way, so psychically, tuned, I could tell what was going on in people's heads, just being around them and feel what they were feeling. And that was not that fun to be able to do that. But I also saw people, that were doing really weird things and whatever, and I started to call people on it, and they got mad and angry, and I got angry at them for not believing me, and so I just kind of got pissed off at the world and pushed up against it. And at some point, people saw I was doing kind of strange things, so they wound up putting me away.
Wow.
So, but I never actually, and even then, and by the way, I escaped. I said, I don't need to be here, and so I actually jumped over the wall and hitchhiked back to Berkeley. Then they went and caught me again and put me back in maximum security. That was not fun. So then I decided, instead of railing against the world, I think I will cooperate with it. So I tell people now, I'm not any less crazy. You're just looking at a high state of cooperation.